What if the battles you face aren't just personal struggles, but reflections of a conflict older than the stars themselves? Long before human history began, a war erupted, not with weapons, but with wills. Forces of light and darkness clashed for dominion over creation, and its echoes still shape every soul, every choice, every unseen resistance you feel. This is the hidden beginning of spiritual warfare, the moment eternity itself was divided between loyalty and rebellion. Today we uncover where it truly began, why it still rages within and around us, and how its outcome was written before time began. Before the first atom stirred, or the first ray of light tore through the endless void, there was already movement, an invisible rhythm pulsing in the heart of eternity, a symphony of worship that filled the expanse where time did not yet breathe. Creation had not begun, yet the heavens were alive, populated by beings of fire and spirit, radiant intelligence born of divine will. Thrones, dominions, principalities, and powers, each order reflected a different facet of the Creator's glory. Some were woven from light itself, their voices the sound of the dawn. Others were formed of flame, singing the language of holiness in ceaseless reverence before the throne. The universe was not yet shaped, yet the hierarchy of heaven already stood in flawless harmony. An orchestra tuned to the perfection of divine authority. God reigned not from distance, but from a center of living light that pulsed through every realm, an unapproachable brightness where the fullness of all being dwelt. The angels moved as thoughts of God, carrying decrees, sustaining balance, spreading order across dimensions that mortal eyes will never see. There was no death, no decay, no opposition, only purpose, only unity, only the weight of divine perfection vibrating through the infinite expanse. But in that perfect realm, where nothing lacked and everything existed for glory, something unprecedented stirred. A whisper, faint as breath, yet heavy with consequence. How could rebellion be born in a place without imperfection? The answer lies not in lack, but in liberty. For even in heaven, love is not programmed, it is chosen. The Creator, in His infinite wisdom, had given His creatures the most dangerous gift, will. Free will, the power to worship or withhold, to serve or to rise against. Within that freedom lay the potential for both adoration and defiance. The angelic hosts, millions upon millions strong, bowed in awe at the sight of divine majesty. Rivers of living fire flowed before the throne, and at their center, high above all dominion, shone the glory of the Eternal One, light upon light, uncreated and eternal, from whom all other lights borrowed their flame. Yet somewhere within that ocean of worship, a thought was born that did not align with the rhythm of heaven. The cherubim and seraphim still sang, but beneath their chorus, a dissonant note began to form, a shadow in the song. Among the ranks of radiant beings, one stood adorned more gloriously than the rest. His name meant bearer of light, for his body shone with precious stones that reflected the colors of creation yet to exist. Wisdom flowed from his lips, beauty radiated from his form, and his music once guided the worship of heaven itself. He walked among the stones of fire, close to the throne, and the reflection of divine brilliance gleamed upon his wings. Yet, the very closeness that should have inspired humility began to birth pride. For as he beheld his own reflection in the radiance of glory, he mistook the mirror for the source. Thus the seed of discord took root, not in weakness, but in splendor. It began not as open defiance, but as curiosity, a question forming in a being who had never known lack. What if glory could belong to another? What if the light could shine without its source? It was a thought never spoken, yet its vibration trembled through eternity. The harmony of heaven wavered for the first time. a single imperfection echoing in a flawless realm. And yet, God allowed it. He who sees the end from the beginning did not extinguish the thought, nor silence the question. He permitted it to grow, for love cannot exist without the possibility of rejection. The perfection of heaven was not threatened, but tested, revealing that true obedience is not proven in peace, but in the presence of choice. From this moment, spiritual warfare was born, not in swords or conflict, but in will and allegiance. The very first battlefield was not the stars or the earth, but the heart of an angel. Heaven became a mirror to the mystery of divine patience. The Almighty did not react in haste. He allowed time, even before time existed, for the truth of every being to unfold. The angels continued their worship, unaware that one among them had begun to interpret his own reflection as divinity. His admiration of the Creator slowly turned inward until self became his altar. The war had not yet begun, but the idea of independence, of a kingdom apart from the king, had been conceived. And while the thought remained hidden, its consequences would soon ripple across eternity. Yet even as rebellion gestated in secret, the light of God did not dim. His omniscience foresaw every spark that would one day ignite into flame, and still, he chose creation. For love does not prevent choice, it redeems it. And so the Eternal prepared a plan that would stretch from the first rebellion to the final restoration. The very concept of spiritual warfare, this unseen conflict that would one day define all history, was already known, already measured, already destined for resolution. For even before there was war, there was victory. The throne stood unshaken, the glory remained unshadowed, and the Creator, whose wisdom reaches beyond the confines of eternity, had already determined that even rebellion would serve revelation. In the vast silence before creation, the angels sang of His holiness, their voices rolling like thunder through unbounded light, unaware that their next hymn would be sung in the aftermath of war. The universe had not yet begun, but already destiny stirred. A question had been asked in heaven, and soon it would demand an answer. Thus began the first movement of the greatest story ever told, the mysterious origin of spiritual warfare, born not from weakness, but from the very freedom that makes love divine. Lucifer's glory was unmatched among the hosts of heaven. His radiance was a reflection of divine artistry itself. Every facet of his being shone with perfection, his wisdom deep as the fountains of eternity, his beauty radiant as the dawn before light had ever graced the earth. He was the anointed cherub who walked among the stones of fire, the guardian of the throne, the living instrument of celestial worship. When he moved, the heavens shimmered. When he sang, his voice carried harmonies that rippled through the foundations of creation itself. The light that flowed from the throne of God reflected upon him so purely that even other angels bowed in reverence when his wings unfurled in the courts of glory. He was not God, yet he glowed with God's splendor, and therein lay the subtle danger. The line between reflection and identity began to blur. It started not with rebellion, but with wonder, not with anger, but with admiration of self. He gazed into the glory that surrounded him and mistook it for his own. The reflection that once led him to worship the source now ensnared him in fascination with the image. It was not that he ceased to adore the Creator, but that he began to adore himself in equal measure. A thought formed, a quiet, poisonous whisper that slithered through the purity of his mind like smoke curling in sacred air. Why should all light belong to him alone? It was a question that had never been uttered in heaven, a sentence so small yet heavy enough to fracture eternity. Pride was born that instant, not as rebellion in act, but rebellion in identity, a desire to possess what only God could be. In that desire, Lucifer stepped outside the harmony of heaven and into the dissonance of self-worship. He wanted not to destroy the throne, but to share it. He wanted equality, not companionship, to stand beside the Creator rather than beneath him. The words that Isaiah would one day record captured the very heartbeat of his fall. I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit upon the mount of assembly. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. With every I will, heaven trembled. The song of worship that once ascended to the eternal now curved inward, transforming into an anthem of defiance. The choir of light faltered as its conductor began to sing a different melody. No war had yet erupted, but the fragrance of peace was changing, replaced by the scent of something unfamiliar: ambition. The throne, which had always been the axis of order, now faced its first challenger, not in might, but in will. Lucifer, the bearer of light, sought to become the light itself. The irony burned through the cosmos. The one created to reflect glory now hungered to own it. Pride became the first weapon forged against heaven, invisible, yet sharper than any sword, capable of dividing creation itself. Lucifer's splendor, once his crown, became his curse, for pride cannot exist in the presence of pure holiness. It consumes itself. Yet, in the wisdom of the eternal, the rebellion was allowed to mature, that its nature might be revealed before all who dwelled in light. And so, Lucifer began to whisper. Subtle words moved through the celestial halls, questions disguised as curiosity, persuasion cloaked in devotion. Does not the Almighty share His glory? Do we not all bear His image? Then why should one throne rule all? His voice was smooth, his reasoning intoxicating, his brilliance undimmed. Many listened, not yet fallen, but fascinated. The perfect order of heaven began to bend under the weight of a single will, in conflict with its creator. Still, the eternal did not intervene, for even rebellion must be given room to reveal its limits. Lucifer's deception deepened. He began to imagine himself enthroned. The currents of worship turned toward him, the light of the universe emanating from his own being. He saw himself at the center of creation, the equal of the Most High. Yet, his delusion did not escape divine sight. The one seated upon the sapphire throne beheld his creature's corruption, not with surprise, but with sorrowful sovereignty. He had known this would come, for in his omniscience, even the shadow had been foreseen as part of the greater light. Heaven was about to learn that perfection without choice is not true holiness, and love without freedom is not love at all. The first tremors of division rippled across the celestial sea. The loyal angels felt the disturbance like a storm rising in their spirit. The balance of glory trembled. Michael, the archangel of order whose name means "who is like God," perceived the growing dissonance. He knew that Lucifer's path led not to elevation but to exile, and yet the Almighty waited, not to see the outcome but to let the truth of each heart reveal itself, for every angel would have to decide who would remain in the harmony of submission and who would join the choir of rebellion. The war had not yet broken out, but the silence before it was unbearable, stretching across eternity like the breath before thunder. Then it came, the thought that tore the heavens. Lucifer lifted his eyes to the throne and in his heart proclaimed, "I will be like the Most High." The very sentence fractured the fabric of heaven. Light clashed with light, praise turned into protest. The music of worship shattered into chaos. In that moment, eternity itself shuddered under the weight of pride. A being of light had turned his radiance into rebellion, and creation would never be the same. Thus began the great division, the birth of spiritual warfare, not between equals, but between the created and the Creator, between borrowed glory and eternal light. What had begun as a single thought would soon manifest as a war that would span heaven, earth, and every soul ever formed in the image of God. The silence that had hovered like crystal over eternity shattered in an instant. The first war was not born of dust or blood, but of spirit and will. A storm unlike any creation had ever known surged through heaven, the clash of loyalty and pride, of reverence and revolt. From the highest reaches of the divine realm, the cry went forth, echoing like thunder through the corridors of light. Who is like God? It was the declaration of Michael, the archangel of divine order, whose voice became the trumpet of righteousness. His words did not summon debate, but drew a line through eternity. On one side stood the loyal hosts, innumerable angels clothed in light, their wings burning with obedience, their hearts fixed upon the throne. On the other, the deceiver and those seduced by his illusion of self-divinity. The air of heaven itself trembled with the tension of choice. For the first time, creation knew division. The glory that once united the celestial realm now divided it. As loyalty crystallized into legions and rebellion gathered into ranks of defiance, the heavens, once filled with song, now roared with the sound of swords drawn in justice and fury. The sight was terrible and magnificent. Wings of flame striking like lightning, voices shouting praises and curses that shook the pillars of eternity. It was not war for territory, for heaven has no borders. It was war for truth. Lucifer had sought equality with the uncreated one, and by doing so, he tore at the foundation of all existence. If his lie had been left unchallenged, even holiness would have seemed negotiable. But the throne is not sustained by might. It is sustained by righteousness. So the Word who was before all worlds remained seated upon it, not as a participant in the conflict, but as its sovereign. Christ, the eternal Logos, the very force that held creation together, did not draw a sword. His power was not in striking, but in sustaining. Even as war raged across the heavens, the stars yet unborn still glowed within his thought. Galaxies not yet formed still spun in his design. His authority was untouched, his will unshaken. He watched as Michael's hosts advanced, each angel burning with holy purpose, their movements synchronized like the turning of cosmic gears. Fire met fire. Light clashed with corrupted light. The sound was like the breaking of worlds. What Lucifer had once used to direct worship, the harmonies of heaven, became his weapon of defiance, his voice twisting truth into chaos. Yet, for every note of rebellion, 1,000 voices rose in response. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty. The hymn of eternity became the weapon of fidelity. Lucifer's followers, once radiant, began to dim. Their brilliance, no longer connected to the source, withered like embers torn from flame. Still they fought, their pride fueling a hopeless resistance. They hurled accusations, claiming injustice, claiming freedom, claiming equality. But freedom severed from truth is only bondage in disguise. Michael advanced with the authority of the eternal, his sword glowing with divine justice. Around him, legions of light cut through darkness like rivers of fire, sweeping away the chaos that sought to unseat the order of creation. The rebellion screamed against inevitability, for no creature can overturn its creator. Lucifer, in his rage, rose high above the clouds of glory, wings spread wide, seeking to storm the heights of the throne. He wanted not merely to win, but to be worshipped. But before him stood the radiant brilliance of divine law, unyielding and eternal. The closer he came to the throne, the weaker his light became, for nothing corrupted can survive in the presence of perfect holiness. The light that once clothed him now burned his own form, and the same fire that once sanctified now condemned. Then came the decree, not shouted, but spoken with the weight of creation itself. There was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, but they did not prevail. That was the moment authority was defined forever. The Creator did not fight to prove his sovereignty. The creation fought to reveal it. For rebellion can never dethrone the divine. It can only expose the futility of pride. The eternal Word, Christ, the architect of all existence, sat enthroned through it all. His power did not waver as galaxies turned in perfect balance, nor did the pulse of life falter in his hands. In him, the war was already decided before the first sword was drawn. The victory was not won by force, but by nature. God cannot be overthrown because he is not sustained by power. He is power. The very being of existence is his domain. Lucifer's fall was not a defeat inflicted, it was a revelation unveiled. Every rebellion against light ends not in conquest, but in separation. The deceiver's pride, once invisible, became manifest as darkness spreading through brilliance, until finally justice spoke. The moment came when the deceiver's defiance could no longer stand before divine purity. Like lightning torn from the sky, he fell. The brilliance that once lit the heavens became a shadow cast across creation. His followers plummeted with him, their cries swallowed by the silence of separation. Heaven exhaled, purified, restored, triumphant. The first war was over, yet its echo would never fade. The scar it left upon eternity was not destruction, but memory. A reminder that even in paradise, pride can distort worship into war. Michael and his hosts bowed before the throne, their swords lowered in reverence. The eternal Word, unmoved and victorious, looked upon the restored harmony and saw that it was good, not because rebellion had been crushed, but because truth had been revealed. Authority once challenged, now shone clearer than ever. The universe understood that power divorced from love becomes tyranny, but power rooted in holiness is everlasting peace. And though heaven was cleansed, the battle was not yet over, for the fallen would not rest in exile. They would seek new ground, a new theater, where the ancient war could continue. The conflict that began in eternity had not ended. It had only shifted its battlefield. The same pride that rose in the heart of Lucifer would one day whisper in the heart of man. Thus, spiritual warfare, though born in the heavens, would soon descend to earth. And while the throne remained unshaken, the story of rebellion was far from finished. The moment the decree went forth, heaven's gates, once open to the flow of light, sealed against those who had chosen shadow. What began as rebellion in spirit now became exile in substance. Lucifer, the radiant one, the anointed cherub who walked among the stones of fire, was stripped of his station. His brilliance turned to darkness, his melody to mourning. The word of God, unchanging and eternal, did not strike him down in rage, but cast him out by justice. For holiness cannot coexist with pride. The light that once crowned his brow became a fading ember, a mockery of its former glory, and the name that once meant light-bearer became synonymous with the absence of light. As he fell, his cry tore through the fabric of the cosmos, a sound of rage and ruin that reverberated across dimensions. The hosts that followed him, once radiant spirits now twisted by rebellion, were drawn into his descent, their wings consumed by the fire of their own defiance. The stars themselves seemed to mourn as 1/3 of the heavenly host plunged into the abyss, the first fracture in the order of creation. Their exile did not end in silence but in transformation, for though heaven was cleansed, the void beneath became infected by their presence. The space between realms, once empty and neutral, was now charged with hostility, a domain of exile ruled by envy and deception. The war in heaven had ended, but its consequence had only begun. Lucifer, now the adversary, the accuser, the serpent, surveyed his new dominion, a kingdom without light, a throne without authority. He could not destroy heaven, so he sought to corrupt what heaven would create. And when God, in his infinite wisdom, spoke again, "Let there be light," the fallen one trembled, for he knew that the Creator's plan had not been undone but advanced. The Word, by which all things were made, began to shape a new realm, a physical universe radiant with possibility, stars igniting, oceans forming, life emerging in perfect order. To Lucifer, this was intolerable. The same hands that had shaped him were now forming a new kind of creation, one that bore not only the image of God's thought but the likeness of his love. Humanity was not made of flame or spirit, but of dust and breath, humble, frail, and yet crowned with divine intention. For the Almighty declared, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." In those words, Lucifer heard what he had always desired, likeness to God, yet man, not angel, was given that destiny. It was the ultimate humiliation. The war that began in heaven now sought a new stage, and earth became its chosen battlefield. The serpent's fall was not his end, but his opportunity. He could not dethrone God, but he could wound what God loved. He could not steal the throne, but he could stain the image that bore its reflection. The stage was set. The kingdom of light and the realm of defiance stood opposed, and the battleground between them was the human soul. The Garden of Eden was not merely a paradise of beauty. It was a frontier of spiritual war. Every tree, every river, every whisper of wind carried the tension between obedience and pride. The serpent did not crawl there by accident. He entered as an echo of that ancient rebellion, a fallen prince seeking to repeat his crime in flesh and time. Cloaked in subtlety, he did not strike with force, but with suggestion, for the weapon of the deceiver has never been violence but distortion. Just as he once asked in heaven, "Why not you?" he now whispered to Eve, "Did God really say?" The same seed of pride that had poisoned eternity now sought root in human soil. The fall of Lucifer had prepared the path for the fall of man, yet God, in his sovereignty, was not unprepared. For even as the serpent slithered among the branches of Eden, the plan of redemption already existed in the heart of the eternal. Nothing catches God unaware. Even rebellion becomes the thread through which his justice weaves grace. Still, the scene that unfolded was one of sorrow. The woman, pure in innocence, listened to the whisper. The man, clothed in glory, remained silent as the voice of deceit replaced the voice of truth. "You will not die," the serpent lied, twisting divine warning into promise. "You will be like God, knowing good and evil." The echo was unmistakable. It was the same ambition that had once burned in the heart of the fallen cherub. And as she reached out to take what was forbidden, creation itself held its breath. The bite was not merely into fruit, but into illusion. The illusion that creation could define itself without the Creator. The moment humanity fell, the battlefield of eternity descended into time. The ground, once blessed, groaned under curse. The light within man dimmed, and the serpent's victory seemed complete. Yet even in judgment, mercy spoke. The voice of the Lord did not thunder in annihilation, but in prophecy. "The seed of the woman shall crush your head." The serpent's triumph was temporary. His doom had already been declared. From that day, the world became a mirror of the invisible war. The heavens were split between loyalty and defiance, and earth became the arena where those allegiances would play out. Every act of kindness resisted the serpent's whisper. Every act of pride echoed it. Humanity, made in the image of God, now stood between two kingdoms, each contending for the heart. And though man had fallen, the divine plan had only deepened. For the Creator, who allowed rebellion for the sake of freedom, would also allow redemption for the sake of love. Lucifer, now known as Satan, the adversary, roamed the earth, seeking to twist what had been made pure, to mar what had been declared good. Yet the same God who cast him down would one day descend himself to finish what began in heaven. The battlefield was established, but the outcome was not uncertain. For even as darkness spread its roots through the soil of history, light still spoke from eternity. The kingdom of darkness shall not prevail. And so, while the fallen plotted from the shadows and humanity wandered between obedience and rebellion, the eternal throne remained immovable. The war that began among angels now continued through men, but its ending was already written. The serpent's head would one day be crushed under the heel of the one who was, who is, and who is to come. Eden was never just a garden. It was the intersection of heaven and earth, a sanctuary where the divine and the human walked in harmony beneath the same light. Every breath Adam drew was communion. Every step he took was worship. The rivers that flowed from its center glistened with purpose. The trees bent in rhythm to the will of their maker, and the air shimmered with peace. The presence of God was not distant but tangible, a living radiance that bathed the first man and woman in glory. They bore his image not only in form, but in authority, dominion over creation, stewardship over beauty, the sacred privilege of choosing obedience freely. The Creator had placed before them one boundary, not as restriction, but as revelation, a reminder that love requires choice, and that free will without trust leads to ruin. But in the unseen realm, the defeated cherub watched. The serpent, cloaked in cunning and shadow, saw in these new beings an opportunity to replay the rebellion that had cast him down. His hatred of heaven was now focused upon its image on earth. He could not dethrone the Almighty, but he could desecrate his reflection. If he could bend humanity toward pride, he could replicate his own fall within flesh and blood. The serpent did not strike in force. He slithered in subtlety. Evil rarely announces itself. It questions, it twists, it imitates light. Did God really say? The question was as ancient as his rebellion, yet still potent. It planted doubt where there had been perfect trust, and that seed of doubt began to grow. Eve's gaze lifted toward the tree that had always stood at, the center, neither hidden nor forbidding, simply set apart. Its fruit glistened in the morning dew, harmless in appearance but heavy with consequence. "You will not surely die," the voice whispered again, gentle as wind through leaves, seductive as truth wrapped in deceit. God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. It was the same lie that once echoed through the courts of heaven, the same poison that had transformed Lucifer into Satan, the desire to ascend rather than submit. Eve hesitated, and in that hesitation the serpent's whisper became her own thought. Adam stood beside her, silent, as the perfect balance of creation teetered on the edge of ruin. The fruit was taken, bitten, and shared. In that single act, the music of Eden changed. The wind fell still, the light dimmed, the ground shuddered as innocence died, and knowledge, cold and sharp, took its place. The first human battle was lost not by force, but by persuasion. The serpent had not conquered by strength, but by suggestion. Pride had crossed from heaven into humanity, and with it came separation. The glory that once clothed them faded, replaced by shame. The hands that once shaped gardens now trembled to hide leaves over guilt. They had sought to be like God, and in doing so, they discovered what it meant to be apart from Him. Dominion fractured. The crown of stewardship slipped from humanity's brow. The world itself felt the wound. The soil resisted, the sky wept, and death, once a stranger, now became destiny. Yet even in judgment, the voice of mercy spoke. God did not abandon His creation. He called to it. "Where are you?" was not the cry of an omniscient being seeking information, but the call of a father seeking his lost children. The sentence was pronounced: pain, toil, mortality. But within it, a prophecy was woven. The seed of the woman shall crush your head, and you shall strike his heel. It was a declaration of war and redemption in a single breath. The serpent had drawn first blood, but the promise revealed that his victory was temporary. The battle would continue, but its end had been foretold. The woman, deceived yet chosen, would bear the lineage of deliverance. The enemy had awakened war within creation, but God had awakened hope within history. From that moment, every birth would carry the faint memory of that prophecy. Every generation would echo the longing for restoration. The war had shifted again, from heaven to Eden, and now into the hearts of humanity. Adam and Eve left the garden not merely as exiles, but as bearers of a promise they could not yet comprehend. Behind them, the flaming sword of the cherubim guarded the way back to the tree of life, a reminder that holiness and corruption cannot coexist. Ahead of them lay toil, pain, and generations of conflict, but also the unfolding of grace. The serpent slithered away, satisfied with his wound upon creation, yet ignorant of the wound he had inflicted upon himself. For in tempting humanity to fall, he had triggered his own eventual destruction. From that moment, two bloodlines would flow through history: the line of rebellion and the line of redemption. Cain and Abel, Isaac and Ishmael, Jacob and Esau. The pattern would repeat as the invisible war manifested in visible lives. Spiritual warfare was no longer a cosmic theory. It had become a living inheritance. Humanity would now live between two voices, the whisper of deception and the call of truth, and every choice would echo the first battle fought beneath the forbidden tree. Yet God's plan moved steadily forward. The seed of the woman, the mysterious figure prophesied in Eden, would one day walk upon the very earth that had been cursed, and the heel that the serpent would strike would crush the rebellion forever. In this, the story of spiritual warfare was no longer merely about defiance and punishment. It became a story of redemption. The war was not simply to destroy evil, but to restore love, to reclaim what was lost through disobedience by the greater obedience of the one to come. Thus, from the dust of defeat, destiny arose. The serpent had won the first human battle, but he had also awakened the wrath of mercy, the kind that never forgets, never retreats, and never fails. Spiritual warfare had found its stage in humanity, but in the heart of God, victory was already written. From the moment Eden's gates closed and the flaming sword turned, history became the theater of an invisible war. The ground that once bloomed effortlessly now bore thorns, and beneath its soil pulsed the tension of two unseen kingdoms. The first children of humanity, Cain and Abel, embodied the conflict's earliest echo, one offering born of faith, the other tainted by pride. The serpent, who once whispered in Eden, found a new voice in envy, twisting brotherhood into bloodshed. When Abel's blood cried from the ground, it was not only the first murder, it was the first sacrifice of innocence upon the altar of rebellion. From that cry onward, the line between good and evil ran not merely through heaven and hell, but through every human heart. The descendants of Adam multiplied, carrying within them both the memory of the lost garden and the shadow of the serpent's whisper. Civilizations rose, each promising peace, each consumed by the same disease of pride that had once corrupted Lucifer himself. The Tower of Babel rose like a monument to heaven's rebellion made flesh, humanity's attempt to reclaim divine authority without divine presence. "Let us make a name for ourselves," they said, echoing the ancient, "I will ascend." And once again, heaven intervened, not with war, but with confusion. The languages of men fractured as a mirror breaks under pressure, scattering unity into division. The rebellion that began in heaven now wore human faces and built human empires, but the power behind them remained the same: for unseen forces moved beneath the surface of history, orchestrating pride, idolatry, and oppression. Yet, God, in His mercy, raised His own agents, not warriors of steel, but prophets of fire. Each generation received a messenger to counter the serpent's schemes. Enoch walked with God and defied death. Noah built an ark while the world mocked. Abraham left the idols of Ur to follow an unseen voice into promise. These were not isolated stories, but successive campaigns in the same ancient conflict. The serpent's strategy was always the same: corrupt what God had chosen, confuse what God had spoken, counterfeit what God had promised. Every idol carved, every empire exalted, was an echo of that primeval "I will." Yet every covenant, every act of faith, was an answer from heaven, a declaration that light still rules the darkness. Egypt rose as the embodiment of tyranny, its pharaohs worshipped as gods, its might used to enslave the very people through whom the promised seed would come. Behind the pharaoh's hardened heart, Scripture hints at a darker intelligence, a spiritual power feeding human arrogance. When Moses stood before him declaring, "Let my people go," it was more than a mortal confrontation. It was heaven's challenge to hell's dominion. The plagues that struck Egypt were not random punishments, but divine warfare. Each plague a direct assault upon the idols of Egypt, upon the demonic powers that claimed authority over creation. The Nile turned to blood, as if creation itself cried out against corruption. Frogs, darkness, and death swept the land until Pharaoh's throne, like Lucifer's before it, was humbled beneath divine command. And when the sea split before Israel and closed upon their pursuers, it was not mere escape. It was judgment upon the kingdom of pride. But even in deliverance, the war continued. The wilderness became another battlefield where faith was tested and disobedience spread like disease. The serpent who once spoke in Eden now whispered in hearts weary of manna and miracle. Was it better in Egypt? Again and again the cycle repeated. Rebellion followed by restoration, sin answered by grace. The judges rose and fell. Kings were anointed and corrupted. Prophets were sent and silenced. Yet through it all, the hidden hand of God remained steady, weaving redemption through rebellion. The invisible war raged not only in human hearts, but in the spiritual realm itself. When Daniel fasted and prayed in Babylon, seeking understanding, an angel came bearing revelation. But the messenger confessed a mystery that pulled back the veil. The prince of Persia resisted me 21 days, but Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me. This was no metaphor. Daniel had stumbled upon the spiritual architecture of nations. Empires rose not merely by human ambition, but by spiritual influence. Behind Persia stood a prince, an unseen entity directing power, politics, and pride. Behind Greece, another. The world of men was a chessboard. The true war was between the unseen hands that moved them. The prophet's vision pierced the illusion of earthly sovereignty and revealed the pattern that governs all ages. Every throne, every ideology, every empire that exalts itself above the knowledge of God aligns with that same original rebellion. And every act of humility, every faith-filled defiance, aligns with heaven's cause. Babylon, Assyria, Rome, different names, same spirit. The powers that once fought before the throne now fought through the instruments of man. Yet even as darkness expanded its dominion, light advanced quietly through covenant and promise. The word continued to weave through lineage and prophecy, shaping history toward one inevitable point: the coming of the seed who would crush the serpent's head. The prophets saw glimpses of this victory through visions wrapped in fire and cloud. Isaiah saw a child born, whose name would be Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God. Ezekiel saw wheels of fire carrying divine glory above the ruins of exile. Daniel saw thrones set in place and the Ancient of Days seated in judgment, his dominion everlasting. These were not separate revelations, but coordinates in the same divine map. Behind every kingdom's rise and fall, an invisible current pulled history toward redemption. The angels still fought in silence, their wings unseen but their influence real, holding back chaos, guiding nations, protecting the remnant through which the promise would endure. The serpent still struck, yet each strike only hastened the fulfillment of prophecy. Spiritual warfare was not chaos. It was the consequence of freedom and the theater of divine justice. Every ideology that glorified man above God was a repetition of Lucifer's "I will." Every act of worship, repentance, and faith was a proclamation of Michael's question, "Who is like God?" The human story was never merely human. It was, and remains, a reflection of the unseen struggle that began before time. And though the powers and principalities continue their conflict in realms beyond sight, the outcome remains unchanged. The kingdom of light still reigns, and its king still governs even the rebellion that seeks to dethrone him. Before we continue, if this content has blessed your life, like, comment, and share. Subscribe to the channel, and if you would like to bless the ministry, click the Super Thanks button or become a member. That way, we can keep bringing you deeper biblical revelations that strengthen your faith. Now, let us return to the mystery. The story of spiritual warfare had stretched across millennia, through thrones, empires, prophets, and battles unseen. But all of it pointed toward a single moment when eternity would step into time. The Word who spoke creation into being, who watched the fall of Lucifer and the rise of rebellion, would now descend into the very battlefield corrupted by sin. Prophets had spoken of him in fragments and shadows. The seed of the woman who would crush the serpent's head, the suffering servant who would bear iniquity, the king whose kingdom would have no end. Across the centuries, humanity waited, bruised beneath the weight of unseen war, yearning for a deliverer who would break the cycle of rebellion and restore the peace lost in Eden. Yet none could have imagined the manner in which he would come, not as a warrior clothed in fire, nor as an avenging angel leading celestial armies, but as an infant, fragile and helpless, born under the very oppression that had enslaved the world. The Creator entered creation not through thunder, but through silence, not through conquest, but through humility. The eternal Word wrapped himself in flesh and stepped into the dust he had once formed. Heaven watched in awe, for the commander of angels had now taken the form of the creature he came to save. And though the world did not recognize him, all of heaven knew the battle had shifted again. The serpent stirred. The ancient enemy recognized the sound of that heartbeat. The same voice that had once said, "Let there be light," now cried as a newborn in Bethlehem. Herod's madness, the slaughter of innocents, the temptations in the wilderness, all were the desperate counterattacks of a defeated spirit trying to prevent prophecy from unfolding. Yet even as the darkness raged, the light of God walked unnoticed through the streets of men. Jesus of Nazareth, the carpenter's son, carried the authority of eternity in every word and gesture. When he spoke, demons trembled, for they knew that the one who had cast them out of heaven now walked among the very people they sought to deceive. He did not wield celestial weapons. His weapon was truth, sharper than any sword, cutting through lies and liberating hearts. He healed where Satan had wounded, forgave where rebellion had cursed, and loved where hatred had reigned. Every miracle was not simply an act of compassion, it was a strike against the kingdom of darkness, a reclamation of territory once surrendered by man. When he cast out demons, it was not by ritual or invocation, but by the command of his own authority. Go. The fallen recognized their maker and fled before his voice. Yet the greatest battles were not fought in the open. In the wilderness, he met the serpent again, face to face, and where Eve once fell, he stood firm. "If you are the Son of God," the deceiver whispered, echoing his first lie, "turn these stones to bread. Throw yourself down. Bow, and I will give you the kingdoms of the world." 3 temptations, 3 strikes at his mission, 3 attempts to twist divine purpose into pride. But the Word made flesh answered with the same truth that had shaped creation. "It is written." With each reply, he shattered the illusion that had once enslaved humanity, the lie that power is greater than obedience. And when the tempter departed, the wilderness fell silent, conquered not by force, but by faithfulness. The war that began in heaven was now being won in the heart of a man who was also God. For in him, the unfallen nature of heaven and the broken nature of earth stood united. Yet his mission was not merely to resist evil, but to end it. Every step toward the cross was a march toward victory disguised as defeat. The prophets had spoken of a Messiah who would reign, but they did not foresee that the throne would first be a tree, and the crown would be of thorns. The true warrior was not coming to strike down his enemies, but to redeem them. He would face the dragon not with a sword of flame, but with outstretched hands, offering himself as the bridge between rebellion and reconciliation. The serpent could not comprehend this strategy, for pride cannot imagine humility, and hatred cannot fathom love. Yet in that divine paradox lay the weapon that would end the war forever. The same word that had expelled Lucifer from heaven would now let himself be nailed to wood by the same rebellion he came to heal. The very act of surrender would become the final strike. For the true power of God was never domination, it was restoration. The Prince of Peace had entered the war not to destroy creation but to reclaim it. And though the enemy still prowled, his end was already sealed. The one who fell from heaven would soon be cast down again, this time by the sacrifice that would reconcile heaven and earth. Thus, the eternal mystery unfolded. The Creator himself had entered the battlefield, not as a distant commander issuing decrees, but as the incarnate warrior willing to die that others might live. The same Jesus who had witnessed the first rebellion now stood in the midst of its consequences, bearing upon himself the weight of every deception, every sin, every wound inflicted by pride. The war that had begun with "I will ascend" would end with "It is finished." The hill of Calvary rose beneath a darkened sky, and all of creation seemed to hold its breath as heaven and hell faced each other for the last time. The sun withdrew its light, the earth trembled, and unseen armies gathered in silence. It was the hour when eternity met mortality, when the Creator stood suspended between heaven and earth, crucified upon the very wood he had once commanded to grow. To the eyes of men, it was the defeat of the righteous. To the powers of darkness, it was the crowning triumph of rebellion. The serpent who had whispered in Eden now watched in perverse satisfaction as the Son of God bled upon the tree. This, he thought, was the vindication of his ancient boast, that creation could be torn from its Creator, that even the divine could be overcome. Yet he did not understand that the battlefield he celebrated was the very trap that would seal his ruin. The cross was not the symbol of defeat. It was the weapon of divine reversal. For the first time since the dawn of rebellion, the full weight of sin and pride was gathered in one place, and upon that hill, love confronted it without violence. No sword flashed, no angelic host descended. The eternal Word, who had formed the stars, now allowed nails to pierce his hands. The breath that had once given life to Adam now gave itself up willingly. "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," he whispered, not as a plea of despair, but as the declaration of his authority. Even in agony, he ruled. His surrender was not loss, but strategy, for in yielding, he reclaimed what pride had stolen. Every drop of blood that fell to the ground was a declaration written in eternity. The debt of sin is paid. In that moment, unseen forces quaked. The principalities that had ruled since the fall trembled as they realized the magnitude of what was happening. Scripture would later say that through the cross, Christ disarmed the rulers and authorities, making a public spectacle of them. In other words, what appeared as the darkest hour was heaven's greatest revelation, that the Creator had entered his own creation, not to destroy the rebel, but to absorb rebellion's poison and neutralize it in himself. Love, pure and undefiled, stood where judgment should have. The cross became the fulcrum of all history, the axis upon which the universe turned from condemnation to redemption. The serpent had struck the heel of the woman's seed, but in that very strike, his head was crushed. The venom of sin met the antidote of grace, and death, the serpent's final weapon, was turned against him. As Jesus hung between two thieves, one mocking, one believing, the symbolism of eternity played out before all creation. Two kingdoms, two choices, two destinies. One chose pride, the other faith. One repeated the serpent's voice, the other echoed Eden's lost obedience. And between them, suspended in blood and glory, hung the bridge that would reconcile heaven and earth. When he cried, my God, why have you forsaken me?" It was not the confession of despair, but the weight of substitution. The sin of every generation, every act of rebellion, every echo of Lucifer's pride now converged upon him. He bore not only man's failure, but the cosmic fracture between Creator and creation. The darkness rejoiced, believing the light had been extinguished. The fallen angels who once fought against Michael now watched in awe, unable to comprehend that omnipotence could look like surrender. Yet, while the earth groaned beneath the shadow of death, heaven remained still, knowing that victory was about to break through. It is finished. 3 words, simple yet infinite, rippled through every dimension. The veil in the temple tore from top to bottom, not by the hand of man, but by the will of God. The barrier between the holy and the fallen, between heaven and earth, was removed. The mercy seat, once guarded by cherubim of gold, was now opened through the blood of the Lamb. At that very moment, graves opened, rocks split, and the unseen realm shook as light pierced the heart of darkness. Hell, which had believed it captured the sun, found itself invaded. The gates of death that had held every soul since Adam's fall now heard the footsteps of the one they could not contain. The word that once said, "Let there be light," now spoke again into the depths of the abyss, and light returned to where it had never shone. He did not come to negotiate. He came to reclaim. The keys of death and Hades were taken from the hand of the adversary, not by force, but by right. For the sin that gave the enemy power had been erased, and without accusation, he stood powerless. The roar of victory echoed through eternity as the Creator-turned-Savior triumphed through humility. The cross was both judgment and mercy, both throne and altar. Upon it, divine justice and divine love embraced in perfect harmony. Heaven rejoiced as the chains of spiritual bondage shattered, and for the first time since Eden, the path back to God stood open. The angels who once fought at Michael's side now sang a new song, not of war, but of redemption. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain to receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing. In that song, the entire purpose of creation was fulfilled. The cross was not the end of the war, but the beginning of victory's manifestation. From that moment, spiritual warfare would never be fought the same way. The enemy was defeated not by wrath, but by righteousness, not by might, but by mercy. What began in heaven as a rebellion of pride ended on earth as a revelation of love. The blood-stained wood of Calvary became the eternal symbol of triumph. The serpent's crown was broken, his throne dismantled, and his dominion reduced to illusion. Though he still prowls, his authority is hollow. Though he still deceives, his power is temporary. For the Lamb who was slain reigns forevermore, and through his surrender, every believer now bears his victory. Calvary was not a tragedy. It was the coronation of the true King, whose throne was a cross and whose weapon was love, strong enough to silence eternity's oldest war. Though the cross silenced the rebellion's claim in heaven and shattered its power on earth, the war did not vanish. It descended into the heart. Every soul became its own battlefield, every thought a frontier between surrender and pride. The victory of Christ was complete, but the echo of the ancient conflict lingers wherever choice still exists. What began as rebellion in Lucifer now seeks expression in every human hesitation between obedience and sin. The serpent no longer needs Eden's trees or heavenly thrones. He wages war through whispers, doubts, fears, and desires. The unseen battle is not around us, but within us, where the kingdom of light presses against the shadows of self. Even redeemed hearts can feel the tension, for while the cross broke the power of sin, the presence of it still prowls, waiting. For an unguarded moment, the believer walks daily between two voices, the spirit that calls toward holiness and the enemy that tempts toward compromise. The greatest danger now is not possession by darkness, but persuasion by deception. It is the same strategy that turned cherubim into demons, the suggestion that obedience is weakness, that surrender is loss, that self-rule is freedom. But those who belong to Christ carry within them the same spirit that raised him from the dead, the power that once split tombs and silenced death. That spirit is not a distant force, but a living presence, equipping every believer for the invisible conflict. Paul saw this clearly when he wrote that our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against rulers, against powers, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Yet he did not call us to fear. He called us to stand. To stand is the language of victory already won, not of uncertainty. The armor of God he describes is not ornamental theology. It is the living participation in Christ's own triumph. The belt of truth is not an idea, but alignment with the Word who is truth. The breastplate of righteousness is not our morality, but His holiness placed upon us. The shield of faith is not optimism, but defiance against every fiery lie. The helmet of salvation is assurance. The sword of the Spirit is revelation. And the shoes of peace are the courage to walk unafraid through battlefields unseen. The armor is not defense against defeat, but identity in victory. It is wearing Christ Himself, carrying His nature into the fray of daily life. Every temptation resisted, every act of forgiveness, every prayer uttered in faith is a strike against the realm of darkness. The believer is not a victim enduring assault. He is a vessel of divine authority, carrying the light that darkness cannot comprehend. The war within the heart is not fought to earn salvation, but to manifest it, to prove that the victory of the cross was not abstract but personal. When fear grips, the Spirit reminds us that perfect love casts out fear. When guilt accuses, the cross answers with blood that still speaks mercy. When despair whispers that the world is lost, the empty tomb declares that death itself is only a doorway. Every struggle of the soul becomes an echo of that eternal declaration, "It is finished." Yet the enemy's craft has always been persistence. He cannot undo what Christ accomplished, so he seeks to obscure it, blinding believers to their inheritance. He convinces many to live as captives when the chains have already been broken. That is why the call to stand firm is repeated. It is not about resisting a superior foe, but remembering a settled truth. The serpent still speaks, but his tongue is hollow. His dominion ended at Calvary. The Spirit of Christ within believers is not a borrowed strength, but the very continuation of divine life on earth. Through him, ordinary people become extensions of heaven's victory, temples of glory walking through a world still under siege. The unseen war is no longer a cosmic stalemate, but a daily revelation of who truly reigns. Angels once fought in flame, now believers fight in faith. Every act of grace exposes the enemy's impotence. Every prayer of intercession disrupts his plans. Every moment of worship is rebellion against the rebellion. Spiritual warfare is not measured by the noise of conflict, but by the depth of surrender. The strongest soldier is not the loudest warrior, but the quiet saint who refuses to yield to pride, who forgives when wronged, who worships when weary. These are the victories that shake unseen realms. For each time a believer stands firm, another echo of Lucifer's lie dies in silence. The same spirit that rolled away the stone now rolls away fear, shame, and defeat within hearts that believe. And so the war continues, not as an uncertain battle, but as the unfolding of a victory already written. The believer's task is not to conquer, but to remember, to live as one who has already won, because the King already reigns. Darkness may still move, but it moves in retreat. The serpent still whispers, but his words fall against the shield of faith and vanish into nothing. The armor of God is not heavy. It is radiant, for it is worn by those who no longer fight for victory, but from it. The unseen battle within is, in truth, the visible proof of redemption at work. The transformation of the human heart from battlefield to temple, from conflict to communion. And though the war still rages in the unseen, its end has already been sealed by the blood that cried out once and for all. The victory belongs to the Lamb. In the final vision of Revelation, the story that began in heaven finds its resolution in glory. The dragon, that ancient serpent, who once slithered among the stars and whispered in Eden, now stands condemned beneath the weight of eternity's judgment. His empire of deceit collapses, his legions silenced, his throne consumed by the same fire he once coveted. The war that began before time, when pride first challenged perfection, meets its end before the throne of the Lamb. Heaven opens not for battle, but for coronation. John's vision trembles with majesty as he sees the rider on the white horse, whose name is Faithful and True, eyes blazing with the light that no shadow can endure. The Word who was crucified now rides in triumph, his robe dipped in blood, the same blood that redeemed mankind, now revealed as the banner of eternal victory. Legions of angels follow him, not in war, but in procession, for the conflict has already been won. The heavens no longer echo with the clash of rebellion, but with the sound of worship, as creation itself joins the song of the redeemed. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain to receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing. The serpent who once boasted, "I will ascend," is cast down forever, bound by the very justice he despised, sealed beneath the weight of divine decree. Death and Hades, the last allies of his tyranny, are thrown into the lake of fire, swallowed by the very abyss they sought to rule. No more accusation rises before the throne. No more deception corrupts the heart. The voice of the accuser, which once echoed through history, is silenced by the voice of the Savior saying, "Behold, I make all things new." The heavens gleam with unspeakable brilliance as the new Jerusalem descends, not from human effort, but from the heart of God, a city radiant like a bride adorned for her husband. Its walls gleam with jasper, its streets flow with gold clear as glass, and at its center stands not a temple of stone, but the Lamb himself, the meeting place of heaven and earth. The curse is gone. The thorns that once tore the brow of the Redeemer now bloom as crowns upon the heads of the redeemed. The rivers of Eden, long lost to exile, return as the river of life, flowing clear as crystal from the throne of God. The tree that once barred the way now stands accessible to all, its leaves healing the nations that once warred in darkness. Every wound of history is sealed by his hand. Every tear that ever fell is gathered and wiped away by the one who first wept for his creation. The light of the city needs no sun, for the glory of God illuminates it, and the Lamb is its lamp. There's no night there, no fear, no death, only the everlasting morning of peace. The war that began in heaven and spilled upon the earth now ends with creation restored, humanity redeemed, and eternity reconciled. The angels who once fought for justice now sing for joy. The saints who once struggled now reign with him, clothed in white, their names written in the book of life. And as the chorus rises in endless praise, the universe itself breathes a single truth, that love has triumphed, that light was always destined to prevail. What began as rebellion ends in reverence. What began in pride concludes in praise. The serpent's hiss is replaced by the sound of hallelujahs, resounding across the expanse of the renewed heavens. Time itself bows before the one who is Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. There will be no more battles, no more division, no more war within or without. Peace is no longer fragile. It is eternal. The same Christ who stood upon the mountain, who hung upon the cross, and who rose from the tomb now reigns from the throne, unchallenged and adored. The story of spiritual warfare does not close with despair, but with restoration. Every battle fought in faith, every prayer whispered in darkness, every act of love given in weakness has been gathered into this final victory. The kingdom of light has not merely survived, it has consumed all that was broken, turning every wound into worship. And as eternity unfolds, the redeemed will understand that nothing was wasted, that even the war served the will of God. For from the ashes of rebellion rose the revelation of perfect love, a love that conquered not by might, but by mercy. Before we end, if this message has opened your eyes to the spiritual reality behind life's struggles, subscribe and share this revelation. Support the mission through Super Thanks or by becoming a member. And together, we'll continue unveiling the mysteries of Scripture that reveal the glory of Christ and the triumph of His kingdom.